had two or three other. I think there was one major and there was somebody else also. I think you are the fourth or the fifth in the last.
Okay.
We had one fighter pilot who was actively flying for
Yeah.
IA.
Okay. Very nice.
Your one.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Manohar.
Yeah, hi. I'm Madhav.
Good to see everyone.
Yeah, so Venu is our PACI Mumbai member also.
Yes,
I think
yes,
you met,
yes.
right?
Yeah, we met.
So, hello, namaste, namaskar, good morning, good afternoon, or maybe even good evening in whichever part of the world you are joining us from. My name is Deepak R. Khemani and I am one of the co-founders of Bloom. Along with my other co-founder Abhijit, who's present over here, it gives me great pleasure welcoming you all to the 267th non-stop Sunday Bloom Talk Show. Come rain or shine, online or offline, ever since we started during COVID times in September 2020, every Sunday, 12:30 in the afternoon India time, we are online speaking with a change maker, a speaker, an expert, a trainer, somebody who can help us change our lives, somebody who is, as they say, MAD, wanting to make a difference, who can make a difference in their lives and others' lives. In this journey, we have had people from all seven continents of the world. Yes, you heard that right. We've had people from Asia, Europe, USA, North and South America, of course, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and our very own scientist who has been to Antarctica twice, Sri Ram Prasad Lalji. So every continent in the world has been represented on the Sunday Bloom Talk Show. Continuing that tradition, we have a very, very special guest who is joining us here today. We have Colonel Venu Madhav, who is an army veteran, and he will be speaking upon the topic leadership from the borders. And at this point, let me ask Abhijit Sansgiri to take over the session and start with the Q&A. Over to you, Abhijit.
Thank you and welcome Venuji to our show. I think it will be great conversing. So, my first question, and I'm more curious to ask when maybe engineering or science I would say at that age or that era would have been the preferred choice. What inspired you to join the army?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and my special gratitude to Mr. Abhijit Sansgiri and Mr. Deepak Khemani for having me speak on such a august platform. This platform is in vogue from the last 5 years, and so many esteemed panel members and speakers have gone through this, all kind courtesy the founding members.
I'm truly grateful and I thank you for this opportunity. And to all of you speakers who are listening to this session, once again, a very good morning. Now, if you remember Abhijit ji during late 80s and early 90s, the country was kind of, there would be two major professions, especially for those of us from Hyderabad. Either you become an engineer or you become a doctor. And there would only be two destinations for them. Either it was the West Coast or the East Coast. But my story is something different. What I want to bring out here is during class 3 and class 4, where I was studying in a kindergarten school, it says St. Faust Kindergarten School in Secunderabad. I had my neighbors, a couple of them were children of armed forces personnel. And I vividly remember my benchmate, his name was Sujoy. He was the son of a Air Force officer who was then flying fighter aircraft, the same MiG-21s which were inducted in the early 60s and 70s. So this boy, he would make caricatures of aircrafts in the art and craft classes whenever we had, and it would be a simple dolphin-like figure with a tail and a tail fin and the wings. I would ask him, what is this? He says it's an aircraft and someday I'm going to fly it like my father. So this was the first insight I had got into what the armed forces are. And by, as years passed by, I had this liking for flying airplanes and aircrafts. And when I came into my class 10th, after I finished my class 10th, I got an opportunity to go and meet up with my uncle, who was a captain in the Indian Army and posted to Lucknow. Now, those 2 months had a lasting impression on me. When I had gone to spend that vacation time with him, I had seen the army way of life, the discipline, the culture, and more so to a youngster, it seemed to be a lot of bravado, commanding and living with men, leading them into battlefield, the craze for uniforms and the jeeps and the bullet motorcycles, and a lot of brass on your shoulders. This was what was enticing to me. So the only entrance exam I had taken after class 12th was for the National Defense Academy. And I had only this option, or rather only this profession in mind, that I would, if at all, go only into the armed forces and no other career. So this was the kind of motivation or the inspiration in the backup which I had from my formative years right up to class 12, which helped me choose my career, choose my profession, and make me land up in a worthy profession.
Great. I think that's great. Uh, you joined the NDA, right?
Yes.
So I remember you clearly telling us that outside the NDA there is a board sign which says NDA, the maker of men. So
Exactly.
it's a very powerful statement, and how exactly do they transform a young cadet, or what you would call it, a young inspiring individual to have the courage not to fear, to just lay down the life for the country if need be?
You've touched upon a very sentimental and a very motivating caption. For all those, most of you would be familiar about the National Defense Academy and the whereabouts of it. Just a quick recap. The NDA, which is in Pune, is the only one of its kind, and it has cadets from all three services, that is the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. A little way up from the Chandni Chowk, you go into the Pashan Gate, and then from the Pashan Gate, you enter the portals of the National Defense Academy. So I remember vividly when we were taken for the first time in 1990. It was a picturesque scene. We were picked up in buses from the Pune railway station, and this neatly maintained bus had taken us right into the campus. And while entering the campus, as you rightly pointed out, and you remember, your memory serves you right, was this milestone on which it was written NDA, the maker of men. Now, long years after, this word had a profound impact on many of us, and especially so, I'd like to relate to you a small little story. Now, Just to introduce you, NDA has got a very arduous curriculum of both academics and outdoor activities. And the outdoor activities, for somebody who's come just from the civil street, were a little overbearing, in the sense, after the physical activities in the morning and a breakfast, one would go and doze off in the classrooms. Now, these classrooms, if ever anybody has got a chance to visit the NDA, the Sudan block, which was the main administrative come the academic block, had about 100 odd classrooms in it, and a very tall and imposing building. So we would all go there, and in the classrooms would be the tables on which people would sometimes write some graffiti. And at the end of the term, we were all made to take a sandpaper and wipe those tables off and get them into spick and span shape. But few such graffiti rather, some would be humorous, and it would read something like, "Don't die for your country, let the enemy die for his." Or some would say, "Nobody dies of hard work, but why take a chance?" But there was this one particular graffiti which was in my mind for long years. It read, "When you go back home, tell them of us and say that for your tomorrow, we have given our today." Now, this particular three-line graffiti was enriched into my mind for long years. I'll, in a brief while, after some time, I will also relate this graffiti with my real life experience. But coming back to NDA, the maker of men. Now, NDA has a 3 years curriculum with 6 months of each semester. And in the final semester, one need to go through the swimming and the PET test, which is, of course, in all terms. But this particular incident, which I'm going to relate to you today, dates back to December 1993. Sometime close to December 1993, it was in the last week of November, oblique first week of December. There was this cadet, a 6-term cadet, standing on a 10-meter diving board of a swimming pool. And this was close to about sunset in the evening, about half an hour before sunset. Now, the scene was that this cadet was standing in his swimming trunks, and there were about 3 or 4 other people standing alongside him at that very moment. And there was a lot of activity going on. And there was this elderly couple who were walking past the swimming pool. When this elderly couple came, the lady inquired from few people who were gathered around next to the pool as to what is happening. Kya ho raha hai upar? So they said, "Madam, cadet Arya is taking his final attempt and he has to pass his swimming test, so he has to jump from the 10-meter board." So she said, "What's the problem?" So they all kept quiet, and one of them said, "Madam, the problem is this cadet is scared of heights." Now, to reach up to the 6th term, one needs to go up the 3-meter board jump, the 5-meter board jump, the 7-meter board jump, and the 10-meter board jump. So this individual thus far has cleared all those tests and finally reached the 10-meter jump. At that very moment, when she saw that this cadet is not able to jump down, she walked up right below, and she said, "Arya, where's the problem? I mean, you wouldn't want to lose 6 months of your time just because you're not jumping down this diving board for once. Come on, do it and be done with it." So when he heard this, and incidentally, that lady was the senior most officer's wife of the NDA. And of course, Arya would not have recognized her, but then something went into his mind and he said, "Yes, ma'am." He walked up 4 or 7 paces behind, made up his mind. Then he took off as though you take off for a 100-meter sprint. All was good. He ran those 4 or 5 paces, but just before he was about to jump, he quickly latched onto the railing with his right hand and he stopped. And suddenly, everybody was expecting that Arya would jump. He'd gone back, he ran, he came up, and then he stopped. For the second time, again, this lady, she kind of instructed or requested Arya, "Look, you're making a good effort, but this time do it." Now, you don't know what happened to him. He said, "Yes, ma'am." He shook his head. He went back again to the edge of the diving board, and this time he came with a little more pace. And all was well. Just before he was about to leave the diving board, he held onto the railing onto the left side this time. So seeing this lady said, okay, now probably he is not motivated enough or he is not overcome his fear. This lady, she walked up, she climbed up all the stairs leading right up to the 10 meters board. Now, when she reached the 10 meters board, the 3-4 instructors who were already present alongside Arya on the diving board, she had a word with them and they moved down. So this time it was just Arya on the board. Along with Arya was this lady. Now, for 5 minutes, there was a conversation, a one-sided conversation from the lady to Arya. Precisely after 5 minutes, while all these three people who had come down were busy looking at each other and talking to each other, there was a thud, and so jumped Arya. He jumped right from the diving board into the water, into the swimming pool, and then he came outside again. And the lady was on top. She says, Arya, good job done, now come up again. Quietly, as an obedient carrot, he walked up those stairs again. And the second time she said jump, he jumped. When he went to the water the second time, he came out again. Then she called him up the third time. This happened 3 times, and in quick succession, Arya jumped that 10-meter board 3 times. Long years after, I met Arya because he was her course mate and very dear friend of ours. Long years after, I asked him, Arya, what was those magical 5 minutes which made you take this bold decision of leaving the board and jumping into water, not once, twice, but thrice? So he then started relating this small incident, those 5 minutes, the conversation which he had with the lady. He says, she told me, look, Arya, you have a choice today. The choice today is either you jump and be a man for life, leading your men into battle in the Indian Army, or you walk down these stairs and you will die a cowardly death each day of your life and not able to face your men. And then she says those magical words. She says, when you're coming and entering the National Defense Academy through the Pashan Gate, didn't you see that stone on which it is written NDA dash dash dash? Now fill in the blanks. He says NDA, the maker of men. So she says, until today, there have been about 26,000 cadets who have passed out from this academy and who have done wonders and proud to the nation and to themselves. So would you not want to be a part of that legacy, or would you want to be a coward for life? Close your eyes, think about what I have told you, recollect all what your peers, your seniors, and this National Defense Academy has instilled into them and into you, and then take a call. Those magic words, believe you me, Abhijit Bhai and Deepak Bhai, they brought in such a big change in his life that those 4 minutes or 5 minutes transformed him to overcome his fears and take that plunge into water. And thereafter, he went on to become a very senior officer, a worthy officer in the Indian Armed Forces. So such is the power of just about everything which is laid out in the National Defense Academy. Every tree, every stone, every road, every classroom, every instructor, and every colleague speaks to you in the sense they transform you, they enhance your personality and motivate you and make you a legacy by themselves. So these are those powerful words which you had just mentioned and which I recapitulate from yesteryears. Yeah, over to you, Mr.
Thank you for sharing. So, courage, as I would say, is a muscle which the civilians would identify with an armyman and or somebody from the defense, and something which the average man on the street would definitely lack. So there would be various other qualities like I would say discipline, dedication, determination, your faith, loyalty, belief, the inspiration, motivation. There could be a long list. Now, is there anything I've missed out in this list, or how is that muscle actually developed? Is it something that you are inspired enough when you join and it just follows suit, or is there some special training given to you which actually you swear by all those qualities throughout?
Abhijit Bhai, you just read the, you just taken the words out of our minds and then you made a deep connect. Now, you've covered everything. You covered all the qualities. Now, again, I go back to those NDA days and those classrooms and those desks. Another graffiti written on one of those desks. It says, "The safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first." The safety, welfare, and comfort of the men you command come next, and your own safety comes last each and every time. This is the Chetwood credo. Chetwood happens to be General Philip Chetwood, who was the commandant of the Indian Military Academy, who has made this credo. And this credo has so much of a relevance and so much of a meaning into every armed forces officer that he puts his country first, he puts his men next, and he puts himself last each and every time. I'll tell you a small little incident. Now, this, I'm sure all of you are aware of the geography of Punch, Rajouri, Naushera, Akhnur. These are the westernmost districts of Jammu and Kashmir. And to reach Punch, one travels from Jammu, goes via Akhnur, Sundarbani, Rajouri, and finally lands up in Punch. I recall this incident sometime in 1997. It was during the first half of 1997, sometime around March. We were officially assigned duties in a place called Punch, and I had with me about 25 odd men from my artillery regiment I was commissioned to. We had gone on a task, and after completing the task, we were supposed to come back to a place called Naushera. Now, those days, you would travel in convoys. I mean, 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles or 4 vehicles. I had a couple of vehicles with me, and I was leading this column sometime around 8ish in the morning. I started from a place called Punch. I was supposed to come to a place called Naushera. It was a good 4.5 hours drive. 1.5 hours into the drive, we came to a place called Krishna Ghati, and we had a cup of tea with one of the armed forces establishments there. And after about a break of about 10 minutes or so, then we started our journey. If you recollect, there was this workhorse vehicle. It was called the Jonga. It was bigger than a jeep, and it could house about 6 people in the rear. Along with the driver and the co-driver, there would be about 8 in all. So I remember I had 8 people sitting in that particular Jonga that day, and I had this bigger truck version, which is called the 3-ton. Those days it was called the 3-ton. Now they have been replaced by the stallions, the 7-tonners, which you now see. So after the tea break, when we started coming downhill, about 4 minutes or 5 minutes into the drive, my driver started speeding the vehicle. And when you speed a vehicle in a hilly terrain, then you need to take that much longer curvature so as to make good the turns, because you're at a faster pace, the turns will be that much more wider. So the first turn, it went wide. The second turn was wider. And by the time he was coming to the third turn, the speed was also increased. Now, I was feeling a little uncomfortable. I asked Amburam, what is the issue? Why are you speeding up? He pumped the brake, and I could see that brow of sweat on his face, and he looked at me. Rather, he just glanced at me, and thereafter his attention was onto the road, and he said, "Saab, brake fail ho gaya." Now, this was a situation. The situation was we were about 8 people in a jonga, and the jonga was speeding down a hillside, and its brakes failed. As instinct would have, like I have told you, all these graffiti, these inscriptions, the culture, the ethos of the regiments you are commissioned into, it is all sitting at the back of your mind. So it is those words, those actions are etched as muscle memory. One need not think or recall them. They automatically come to you. The first instance when I learned that the brakes have failed, I said, Amburam, no problem. If the brakes have failed, just turn the vehicle to the hillside and head towards the hillside so that it comes to a halt. He said, yes, sir. Hukum to man nahi hai. So the next turn, Amburam took the vehicle close to the hillside. The moment he was about to hit the hill face, dil nahi mana. Steering pakad ke left mode diya. He came back onto the road. And then with each time he was doing that, the speed of the vehicle was picking up. Luckily, I think it was probably third gear, but the speed was quite high. And the next time I said, Amburam, darna mat. Ab ki baar idhar maar dena. So that turn was quite close. Same thing happened. Dil nahi mana. He again brought back the road, and now the speed was high. So as a matter of instinct, I put my right hand onto the steering of the vehicle and I turned the vehicle to the hillside. As luck would have it, there was a heap of gravel. Our vehicle had to graze over that heap of gravel before it went onto the hillside and banged into the hillside. So when it banged into the hillside, much of the momentum of the vehicle was taken away by this huge heap of gravel which was put on the roadside. And the impact was softened to a large extent. After the impact, the first thing is I looked at my driver, Amburam, and I said, Amburam, are you okay? Now, if you recollect those days, I mean, it is what, 35 years back now, there would be seat belts, but I don't frankly remember whether we were using those seat belts or not. And they were not these collapsible steering wheels as what we have in our advanced cars these days. On an impact, the the steering collapses. Those days, of course, the steering would only come and hit the chest of that driver, which it did. And there was a blunt injury. Amburam was talking. He was in a hearty state. I just left him in the car, and I looked back. When I looked back, I realized that the jonga was empty. All the 6 people who were sitting in the jonga then, they had moved out or jumped out. Now, this was the wisest thing to have taken place or to have been done by these individuals. I got out of the vehicle. I started running uphill to see how my boys are, in what state they were in. First, after running about 100 odd meters, I saw Nirmal. He was on the tarmac and his hands and legs were bruised and there were injuries. I walked up to him. I said, Nirmal, thik thak ho? He said, Saab, main theek hu. Then I walked up, or rather I ran another 100 odd 150 paces. Then I saw Manjeet. Manjeet also had visible marks on his face, blood coming from his bruised legs, hands, etc. And so forth. Next, I went to another 300-400 meters. I met Subhadar Dwivedi, who was the head clerk, and etc. etc. I came on to the last guy. The last guy was Kashmir Singh. Now, Kashmir Singh was lying on the road, no external injuries, but his pagdi was displaced. He was a Khalsa, so he was sporting a pagdi, and his pagdi was displaced. He was lying on the road, eyes closed, and he was unconscious. When I went to him, the first time I saw him, because there were no external injuries, I said, thank God, all my men are safe. Nothing has happened to them. So, but he was unconscious. So I sent one boy to the nearest aid. We had a small armed forces set up there, and a vehicle had fetched stuff from there, picked up all these people, took them to the hospital, and that was the first time I met the doctor. I asked them, Doctor Saab, kaise hai mere bande? He says, 3-4 ko to chotein lagi hain, but theek ho jayenge. But I am worried about Kashmir Singh, who's unconscious. I said, why? He says, it is most likely that Kashmir Singh has had an internal injury. So we were about 1.5 hours from Punch. We had taken him back to the army hospital in Punch. The next day, he was admitted and he was in a critical ICU ward. The next day, he was transshipped. He was transported from that place to Udhampur, which is the command hospital, by a army helicopter chopper, army helicopter. And he was taken there. He was treated for 2 days, and on the third day, we lost him. We lost him because when he got out of the vehicle was going down, and he fell in the opposite direction of the vehicle. And when he fell on the road, his entire impact was taken by his head. So he had a hemorrhage, and we lost him. So this incident actually brought out two or three very, very relevant facets or aspects, you can call. After this incident, the first thing I heard from the mouth of these men was that Lieutenant साहब तो हमारे साथ आखिर तक थे. I was a lieutenant. I was a second lieutenant. They said Lieutenant Madhav, he was with us. He was with the vehicle until the end. That was the first. Second, when I walked into my unit thereafter, I could walk with my head held high as though I have cleared the first test of my life. And the first test was acceptance. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for any leader to be accepted by his men is a thing by itself. It doesn't require heroic efforts to make yourself valuable or that particular cog in the wheel to become that team lead or leader. But your men, your people around you, they read you. They read you like an open book. And there is nothing you can hide. You can hide your true self for a day. You can hide your true self for a month. But the end of it all, they will read you and you will realize it yourself, whether you're fit enough to command those men, whether you're fit enough to gain their respect. Now, once you have gained the respect and you become and you gel as a team member, sky is the limit. Sky is the limit, ladies and gentlemen. And then you are accepted into this team. So as what you were trying to bring out, Mr. Abhijit, these qualities of discipline, these qualities of bravado or honor, integrity, loyalty, etc. These to army men, to the armed forces personnel, are second qualities ingrained in you. Primarily, they're ingrained in you. They act as muscle memory. You don't have to think. You don't have to analyze. You don't have to assess or make some charts and graphs in times of necessity or need. You will act in the manner in which these ethos and traditions and culture and values are ingrained in you. So this is one such example. I thought I will relate to my personal history and bring out these 2-3 facets of acceptance and bring out those facets, how you could gel with your team members right at the beginning of your career.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And you were in which regiment?
I was commissioned to the Regiment of Artillery. Incidentally, today is the 188th raising of the Artillery Regiment, and I was commissioned to 108 Medium Regiment.
So just as a layman, we've heard various regiments like the Gurkha Regiment or the Maratha Regiment or the Mahar Regiment, or maybe there could be many. And how is this regiments decided, or how do you go into the regiments?
Okay, so you have primarily several regiments. You have the fighting arms and you have the combat support arms. Now, when you have the fighting arms, you have the infantry, you have the armored corps, and you have the artillery, you have the engineers. Then you have the combat support arms as the Army Ordnance Corps, Army Medical Corps, and the Army Supply Corps, etc. So what happens is, during your final term at the Indian Military Academy for the Army officers, we are given a choice to choice to pen down as to which regiments you would want to be commissioned into. You have three choices, and you pen down whether you want to go into the infantry, whether you want to become infantarian, or you want to become a gunner officer, or you want to get into the armored corps, that's a tankman, or you want to get into the army aviation, or you want to get into the ordnance, signals, engineers, etc. So based on the number of vacancies in that particular block and based upon the merit of that particular cadet, he gets an opportunity to be commissioned into that particular regiment or the corps. So I had opted for the artillery, and thereafter I had opted to become an army aviation pilot. So I got into the artillery, and after a couple of years, then I moved into the aviation corps. Thereafter, I came back to the artillery to command a artillery regiment. So they say, once a gunner for life.
Oh, thank you.
And that's what I am.
So before I ask Deepak to step in, because we can discuss for hours, because it's always inspiring, always interesting to hear stories. So as an aviator, a person who is flown helicopters, which I understand, especially in difficult terrains, especially the Siachen Glacier or maybe the Kargil or whatever. So what are those experiences of actually flying in such dangerous altitudes or such cold, freezing temperatures?
Thank you, Mr. Abhijit. You see, you brought this word Siachen onto you. I'm sure many of us sitting here are aware as to Siachen and the nuances of life spent in the Siachen Glacier. And I just like to bring a small little recap as to what Siachen is about and what are the living conditions. Siachen Glacier is about 80 to 85 kilometer stretch of land, which is the northernmost boundary between us. Onto the eastern side, you have the Chinese territory. Onto the western side, you have the Pakistan territory. And we have started manning these posts right from 1984 onwards. Now, it is a glaciated terrain in the sense it is all glaciers and it is frozen ice. So you have frozen ice glaciers, and the heights are ranging from, let's say, the base camp to about 20,000 feet, 21,000 feet and 22,000 feet. The posts which are there are in that heights. The temperatures there are usually in ranges of about minus 35 degrees to minus 60 degrees temperature. So the worst enemy you have is to bear the weather, because just about everything is frozen, and to have your water, to drink water, you have to heat up. You lose your appetite. You don't have you don't have the luxury of shaving yourself or taking a walk or a stroll, etc., because you are living perpetually in those bunkers. You're living perpetually in those small little icy regions and those shelters, which are often air maintained. Now, when I say air maintained, you mentioned about these helicopters and flying there. Helicopters, rather all machines, irrespective of what they are operating at the heights of their operating limits. I mean, it's the edge of the limits. Now, just about everything is air maintained. That is to say that the food, the ration, the medical equipment, etc., is all air transported right up to those posts. So what happens there is we undertake these rescue missions, these air maintenance missions, and these missions often at times, because of the operating conditions and the weather conditions, you find that the helicopter can only take a limited quantity of supplies, a limited quantity of fuel, etc., for the sustenance. And also, what I'd like to bring about is it requires a special level of skill. It requires a special level of skill for the pilots to navigate those helicopters in such a terrain, sorry, to navigate in that particular terrain, it requires a special levels of skill, and for the skill and this constant training which is undertaken, and there is a series of syllabi and syllabus both done throughout the day for that pilot to achieve that degree of proficiency so that he can go and operate in those conditions. Now it becomes that much more challenging when you have to fly these helicopters in such kind of a weather which is ever changing, and which is actually posing problems for you to, I mean, there's whiteouts there, you find difficulties in navigation, and because of those high altitudes and gusty winds, you're not able to land your helicopter, you're not able to fly the helicopter well, and often the weather is packed up. So these are the live and brave conditions which often these pilots undergo, and of course it is a challenge and a toll on the maintenance engineers also, because you are operating these machines to the extremes of their endurance and their performance, and often they take a beating. So there are many tales of bravado. There are many tales of what I can only say, yes, bravado and presence of mind, which these pilots have to display over and over again just to maintain those posts and just to get some uh, food supplies transported, or when it talks about evacuation of these people in times of medical emergencies. Yeah. Yeah, Abhijit bhai, you're there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there. Deepak, can you take over?
Sure. Thank you, Abhijit. And Colonel sir, you have shared these real life stories. There are times when you are having goosebumps. That there are times when you are feeling aisa bhi hota hai. But I just want to have some sort of a small quiz or a quick Q&A session with the audience who've been listening to Colonel Venu Madhav from the beginning. If you all must have noted when he was sharing that story of the jeep and turning on those roads, coming down and hitting the wall and all that, he never once mentioned the word driver. He always took that driver's name. How many of you remember that name? You could unmute yourself or you could type in the chat. He
Kashmir
said that at
Singh.
least 8 or 10 times.
Kashmir Singh?
No, Kashmir Singh was the guy who died, the driver, the one who was driving the vehicle.
Ambadas or something.
Amburam.
Amburam.
I mean, in our normal conversations, which we do, invariably we would say driver, the guy who was driving the vehicle. We would always say driver. But in every time when Colonel Madhav, mentioned him, he always said Amburam. He never said the driver who was driving the vehicles. So that is the kind of camaraderie which is, there in these, and I say these people because these people are different, even though they are made of the same blood and skin and muscles and bones and flesh. They are brought up differently. He shared that story about, coming up in NDA and the graffiti written on the NDA, and that written, it's etched in your memory on the back end that, what, you have to first take care of everybody and you have to think about yourself the last. Tell me one thing, Colonel sir. Do you really find that there is a difference when you leave the armed forces and come back into, inverted commas, civilian society?
Very interesting and relevant question, of course. You see, Deepak bhai, the armed forces is a way of life. And when you come into the civil, even civil is a defined way of life. So there is a lot of difference. There is a lot of, there are peculiar challenges. I mean, challenges in the civil or the corporate world vis-a-vis the armed forces setup as well. Now, I'd like to briefly touch upon you want me to dwell on the changes and how people adapt?
At least, yeah. One part was, moving in from that life to this life, how easy or how difficult, and
Yeah.
then to be able to control yourself, thinking, you know what, army में तो ऐसा नहीं होता था, यहाँ क्या चल रहा है, ऐसा है.
See, what happens is, I'll give you a simple little example. Now, when you are into an operation or when you are in a field area, when you're undertaking a measured operation, a planned operation, etc., you dwell several hours. You sit together, you plan out several hours, planning that entire operation. And you take all those facets, all those aspects in mind. You consider the capabilities of not only your particular team, but you have other supported teams also functioning with you. It is a homogeneous package or it is a composite package.
Yeah.
Now, during the planning stages, you discuss it out, you plan it out, you war game it with all your elements, and then once the plan is made, then we try to execute it till the end. There are no questions asked. Thereafter, only orders are passed. Nobody is thinking. Nobody is trying to represent. Nobody is trying to go tangential. They are all in sync with you.
Yeah.
Now, this is probably because of years of discipline, planning, loyalty, integrity, etc. Now, one major difference probably in the civil or in the corporate world is, for executing a mission, you undergo the same planning stage, you undergo the same preparation stage. Whereas lives are at stake in such operations there, lives are not at stake here. There is no operational necessity which cannot be held or postponed to the next day to see those favorable conditions or to undergo through those favorable conditions in the civil street or in the corporate setting.
Yes.
The stakes, there are different set of stakes here, there are different set of stakes there. So there is a change in the mode in which execution is done there and execution is done here. Also, here, when you talk about teamwork, when you talk about deadlines, when you talk about time, I'd like to give you a small little example. In my previous organization, I had this team lead reporting to me, come up to me one day and he says, "Sir, I have issues with Abhishek." I said, "Okay, pull your chair, let's sort it out. What are the issues with Abhishek?" He says, "Sir, Abhishek को मैं कोई भी काम देता हूँ, वो आधा छोड़ के चला जाता है, या तो फिर वो हैंडओवर नहीं करता है, या तो फिर वो इंटरेस्ट नहीं लेता है." Then I asked him what are these couple of things. He related 1, 2, 3, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
After having spent about 15-20 minutes trying to understand, analyze, then I told him, "Look, Abhishek, he comes to office at 9 o'clock in the morning and he leaves at 6 in the evening. Now he leaves at 6 in the evening because he's got a tie-up with his carpool or he comes in a paid bus or etc. His timings are fixed.
Yes.
And he stays about 1.5 hours away. So his commute time is 1.5 hours in the morning, 1.5 hours in the evening. So whatever task you have been giving as what you are telling me, you are relating to him at 5 in the evening and you are asking or expecting a task to be done to you while he is in office the same day. How is it possible?"
Yeah.
You give him that flexibility, you give him that freedom, you give him the task, and thereafter don't micromanage things. Now, one tends to say, yes, in the armed forces also one tends to micromanage things, but as I mentioned, the stakes, the setting, the playground, and the rules of the game are different. Now, when you come here, the rules of the game are different. The need is different, the want, the ask is different. One has to adapt themselves to this changes. Otherwise, you will not get the same results as what you are expecting. You will only end up having a hard one. You will only end up having troubling yourself or getting into stress yourself. So understand the nuances, understand your team members, understand their capabilities, understand their limitations and their challenges, and be that guide here rather than imposing the same template which probably you are carrying as a baggage from yesteryears and trying to transpose or juxtapose into the civil society.
Yeah.
So this is one such, offhand I could remember about Abhishek's incident, so I thought I'll share it with you. And yes, there are differences. One needs to be agile and adaptable to the evolving circumstances. And yes, this is how probably one needs to carry himself in a different role, different purpose, and different setting.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you shared that real life story of yours when Abhijit asked you about flying those helicopters and, that Jeep story when you were coming downhill. So I'm here thinking in my mind that, these armed forces people who are, in charge of protecting our country, our borders, they are not only fighting the enemy, they are fighting the enemy, they are fighting the elements, they are fighting their own machines, which may give up any time, when you are midway. So you have to be taking care of everything. It is not only the enemy. And that brings me to this question. It is, so good to hear that despite all these difficulties, we are always prepared. Is it the same on the other side? Is life as difficult? I'm sure it is because the elements are the same. Do they have the same sort of training? Are they battle ready? And I'm thinking in my mind, no, because of Operation Sindoor, the way we, just went and either what we did or whatever we didn't do, a lot of things was told to us. But it seems that they are not prepared. Is that the right way to put it?
You see, at the start of my talk, I had said this quote. I said, "Don't die for your country; let the enemy die for his."
Yeah.
So what happens is, the results are there to speak. The results are there to speak and show themselves. Now, it would be wrong on my part to put down somebody or elevate oneself or talk in our favor and not talk in somebody else's favor. But what I at the end try to pitch by saying is that better training, better equipment, better tactics, and better operational posture will get you those results. Now you have in open source all these operations which have been carried out by our armed forces personnel, both within the country and outside the country too.
Yeah.
And this is being substantiated not only by our local media, but by the media per se the world over.
Yes.
So when one wants to actually know the levels of preparedness or levels of the standards of the equipment or the fighting fitness, etc., you have the statistics, you have the news, you have the proof at your side.
Yes.
So another example I will take you down the edges is the results of the Kargil war, the the news and the media coverage, the acceptance by various foreign media and acceptance by the parties involved, etc. So that is all there. So in the end, I will not circumvent this. I'll just simply say that better training, better equipment, and better operational preparedness gives you the results which you're looking for, and that is what is visible and is available to you for your assimilation.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And we've seen in the past few years, maybe for the last 5, 8, 10 years, a lot of people who have moved out from the armed forces are joining, corporate India, and they are getting, real tough corporate roles. Some people are becoming trainers, some people are becoming coaches. Very famous names like Captain Raman and then Brigadier, our own Brigadier Basin is there. You are employed with a very, very big corporate. Is it a natural choice for corporates to pick up people who have come out of these armed forces, knowing that, they are disciplined and they are, they will do what they are told to? That's their work, that's their ethics. Is it that, or is it something else?
It is everything as what you had mentioned. I'll give you a small little example. An officer in the army who is seen through about 20 years, let's say is a sapper or engineer officer. Now, this officer, apart from undertaking combat missions, he's also been a civil engineer. He's been a project manager. He's been a designer. He's been a draftsman, starting projects from the drawing board and ensuring that they are finished. So, like you have a specialized role being done by a particular segment of the corporate. Unlike that in the army, if an officer has spent his years together and owing to the nature of the postings and owing to the service profile he is exposed to a variety of projects, he's exposed to a variety of operations, he's exposed to a variety of HR management roles, and he is a logistician by himself.
Yes.
So he is a composite package in himself. He has been dealing with HR issues, he's been dealing with management issues, he's been dealing with operational issues, he's been a project manager, he has been a builder, he's been flying drones. So he's got a varied exposure coupled with the sense of dedication, loyalty, and duties, and the environment in which he has grown all his while. So he is a finished product by himself. You put him in any roles.
Yeah.
For most people in the corporate, they tend to see an ex-army or an air force or a naval personnel as just a security man. Security is one of the facets which that individual has been donning over the last 20, 25, or 30 years of his life in that particular organization. It is one particular facet.
Yes.
So you give him an exposure, you give him a responsibility, you give him a task, he is there to deliver.
Yeah.
This probably is now sinking down over the last couple of years, as what you had mentioned. And so you find people from the armed forces personnel are in a variety of roles and a variety of positions. And that's how we are contributing for the betterment of that particular organization and carrying on what nation building we have been doing earlier. It's just now being translated into the city streets.
Yes, wonderful. Very, very well said. And before opening up the room to people who would like to ask you questions, my last question to you is this. At the time when you say bye to your organization, the armed forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever, there are times you may have to leave because of some physical problem, some handicap or something. There are times you will leave because it's retirement age. And there are times you may leave voluntarily because there are better prospects outside. What is that feeling when you've given your life, you've given your prime years to the organization, to the country? How easy or how difficult it is to say goodbye?
Saying goodbye after 2 decades or 2.5 or 30 years is the most challenging phase in any armed forces personal's career. Probably you may quit the army, but the army within you
Never will quit you.
which you have been growing and brewing
Yes.
will never be leaving you for life.
Yeah.
So army is a way of life,
Yeah.
and what it has ingrained right from an 18-year-old. I mean, you join the academy when you're 17 to 18 years of age,
Yes.
and you retire about 54 is the earliest, and 56, 58, etc. So those 36 odd years, minimum 36 to 40 years, which is spent in the army, you cannot take the army away from that individual.
Yeah.
So in one stroke, I would say it's a way of life. You have been growing and brewing in it. It will never leave your side. It is your shadow for life.
Yes, wonderful. Really, really, and I would just like to add, in addition to that uniform or in addition to that training that has been imbibed inside you, a lot of applause, a lot of credit should go to the family, to the wives and to the children who need to live their life either in that constant, transfer stage or, 10 months of their, fathers or their spouses being away from home and every night, probably fearing and feeling that dreaded call, coming from that superior that this may have happened. So that family support, just a few words on that, Colonel Sir.
You see, there is a saying in general parlance that behind every successful man is a woman.
Yes.
Now here, I'd like to give it a small little twist and say behind every successful woman, every successful man is an army wife.
Army wife, yes.
So the amount of sacrifices and the amount of travails and toils which the family undergoes, because every 2 years you're posted to a new place. Like, for example, by the time my kids passed out their class 12, they have seen 7 schools.
Wow.
So 12 years of schooling and 7 schools.
Schools.
Is by the time the child goes and settles down in that school, starts making friends, is
Yeah.
alive to the environment, and has a connect with the teachers and our colleagues, are into sports, etc. It's time to pack baggage and move to another station.
And
So
time to
you
probably learn another local language.
and local languages also. Yes, you're right. But
Yeah.
you see the positive impact it has on the families. Adaptability.
Yeah.
Adaptability is the order of the day. They learn this particular quality called adaptability. It gets ingrained in them.
Yeah.
I mean, you just about go to any place and you feel at home.
Yeah.
Also there are several welfare measures and events, and there's an organization in each of these services for the welfare of the families.
Yeah.
Now, these welfare of the families, they undertake welfare events for the enhancing the quality of education of the children, enhancing the quality of life, taking care of the battle casualties, or taking care of the Veer Naris, I mean those soldiers who have fallen, and the widows, etc. And there are so many enhancement projects, welfare projects undertaken by these organizations, in which our army wives voluntarily take part.
Yes.
And then they take this they put their best foot forward to enhance the quality of life of the environment and the ex-servicemen and the servicemen community.
Yeah.
So hats off to them. And behind every man is an army wife.
Wonderful, wonderful. At this point, I would like to open up the room. Anybody, wants to say a good word to Colonel Venu, ask a question, have some comment, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask.
Only a good word, very inspiring. I'd rather 2 words, very inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Brenda?
Would you say, Colonel Venu, that are corporates giving a sort of a, making sure that they include, ex-army men as an intention?
I think that's a good question. You see, we tend to bring along with us inclusivity where we work, because adaptability is second nature of the armed forces personnel and the army man. As to your question as to what these corporates are doing to bring in inclusivity, yes, I think corporates are doing enough. Firstly, they are investing in these armed forces professionals by giving them independent charges, by giving them independent tasks, and supporting them with the wherewithal. So, as a first step, if you are empowering these people with independent charges and giving them realistic tasks, that is the biggest support one can get on immediate transition from the army or the Air Force and Navy into the corporate or the civil. And second is the working environment. I mean, with an army man comes an organized way of life. With an army man comes a labeled or a task-oriented methodology in which he is performing those tasks. So he is bringing an orderliness, which I think the corporates are looking forward to these days. So all in all, if I were to sum it up in one line, yes, the environment is conducive, it is helpful, and the roles are very accepting.
Thank you. I will just ask a little psychological sort of question, because in the army, you are really trained to say yes, right? To do what you are told to do. And today's corporate world needs people who question, does it need to be done, or, who use a little more creativity. And, I know that in situations it has to be the yes, but when needed.
I got your question. Brenda ji, if you recollect, sometime back, about 15-20 minutes back, I was mentioning about this operational plan wherein various elements, that is the combat elements, the combat services elements, are all sitting together, making this plan and finalizing. And that is the time when you ask inputs, when you take challenges, when you take questions, when you brainstorm. You are at liberty to put down a plan if you have a better logic. I always say, irrespective of the plan at whichever level it is made, but if you are sitting in a forum and you have a better logic, the highest army officer or the air force or the naval officer sitting in that room will go with your logic if it is better than his logic. So having said that, I wouldn't say that there is no asking or there is no, I mean, it is always a yes or a yes manship there. You have your own chance to put forth your ideas, but better logic prevails. Okay, now coming to your second part. I do understand here, as I did mention, that since lives are not at stake, no task here is to be completed by the end of the day. It can possibly spill onto the next day. Having said that, yes, one needs to be adaptable here, because even after the plans are made here, they might be mid-course corrections, or there might be few people who are not willing to stand by the original plan, or there might be few people who are just not interested in walking that extra mile. So herein comes your leadership, herein comes your convincing capabilities or convincing skills, and purpose and alignment is probably more required here in this setup. I agree with you on this score.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Naveen. Naveen had raised his hand. Go ahead, Naveen. Unmute yourself.
Good evening, Sir Venu.
Good evening, Naveen.
Yeah.
So I'm not able to switch on my camera because, but still I want
No
to
problem.
ask
You
you a
look like
question.
a message without the camera.
So I wanted to ask a question to you. A line that I heard from you is making me think in a different way. Is that when you said that discipline and consistency is second nature to you, and I'm thinking, what if I also had this type of nature where discipline had become second nature to me? How can I bring that to my life? How can I, not being an army personnel, but still have that discipline in my life?
Okay, I'd like to clarify here, Naveen, that when I said this, I didn't discount that a non-army personnel is not disciplined or he doesn't have it in his second nature. What I meant to say was that these qualities are ingrained in you to such a large extent, repetitively, over a period of time, it becomes your second nature. Now, coming to your question, a way to understand is to how you can imbibe into these qualities. Get into a routine. And don't deter from your routine. That's the first. Have a commitment.
Okay.
Draw lines for yourself. Draw green lines, blue lines, and red lines. Put flags. What are those blue flags, red flags? Get into some orderliness. Go after timelines, and you see the difference yourself. Naveen, are you listening to what?
Yeah. I'm listening, and I'm getting the motivation from you, because I just wanted to hear it from you. Although I know a lot, but still, like somebody tells me, it feels like somebody is coaching me. That's why I wanted to hear from you.
Yeah, and one last thing, you always require a mentor and coach for life. Each one of us, even me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you,
Naveen,
sir.
Thank you
For
for
asking
asking that question. Yeah.
Deepak, I have one question to ask.
Please.
Anji.
So, one is army training is probably a way of life in many countries, and even mandatory army training is compulsory, I believe, in a lot of countries. Why not in India?
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of countries, you have enlistment and it is compulsory. I mean, you take our good friend Israel also. They have 5 years of compulsory army service before they go on to the civil streets or the corporates or etc. So it adds on in a way into structuring yourself and getting those finer aspects which are essential for you to propel your career and your future too, because all these all these qualities over a period of time, it becomes your second nature and deja vu. So yes, I do. I mean, if somebody were to ask me whether it should be made compulsory, I would say yes. Until 5 years, everybody I feel should route through this and get a first-hand exposure, and thereafter take a call. So in that manner, I always tend to agree that short service commissioned officers who have served the nation for about 5 years and have taken a call to come out into the civil corporate. I mean, you find them, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, there are a lot of people in the corporate sector, and there are a lot of individuals well settled and well entrenched into their jobs. And they have had an entire shift and a complete, they have undergone a complete sense of purpose in their lives. I keep interacting with so many of them, and I feel happy the way they have transitioned and nurtured their career of the years of and utilized those 5 glorious years which they spent in the armed forces.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let me take this opportunity here, to acknowledge Colonel Venu Madhav for joining us on a Sunday afternoon. It's close to 1:40. We are way past our normal time. But, sessions like these, stories like these, learnings like these, make us feel that, 1 hour is not enough. We should probably keep going on. And what I can assure you, Colonel Sir, that we will extend this session at some point where we will do it physically, where you are present and there is a group of us present, and then we learn and network and learn from each other, especially from your life experiences. So thank you for joining us on this 267th non-stop Sunday Bloom Talk Show. Thank you everyone for joining in, and looking forward to all of you joining us next Sunday on the 268th non-stop Sunday Bloom Talk Show.
So before we end, Deepak, I think wish you a very happy birthday. And coincidentally, the Sunday Bloom Talk Show has come on your birthday.
So thank you so much. Thank you, Babijit. Yes.
Your birthday, Bloom.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Deepak. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Harish sir. Thank you, Madhav sir. Thank you.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Yes.
Have a happy
Thank you.
early morning.
Yes, Brenda called me up early in the morning saying, I know it's going to be a busy day, so I'm calling you up early morning and wishing you. Thank you for that, Brenda. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your
Great
blessings.
inspiring talk, Venu. I was
Yes.
happy to be here, present, and listen to you. I think we need to spread this message of discipline and bringing clarity in the minds of the youth that they are meant to do much more. And this 5-year short term is a great opportunity. I don't know whether we can do it in India, but it's a great opportunity. Thank you very much.
Anja.
Thank you, sir.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again.
Have a great day, everyone. Have a great